When season 1 of Silo ends, it's actually only halfway through the first book, Wool by Hugh Howey. So let's get into how the book is different from the TV series. Juliet goes to IT on floor 34. On her way down there, she passes Lucas. She still has this flash drive in her pocket, but she's going to go see Scotty, who transferred there from mechanical. So when she gets down there, there's this boy Ben at the front, won't let her through. She's like, let me through, or else. He's like, okay. So he lets her through after she threatens him. Juliet goes back to Scotty's office. He's acting all skittish. He's like, has anybody seen you come down here? Obviously, Ben at the front saw her come down there. He starts talking about how the stuff that she wired down to Knox wired to Scotty to have him look into it. And he's like, I actually could get into a lot of trouble for looking at this for you. And so then he starts explaining to her about how what she wired to him, the information that she wired to him is for display. 64-bit color. It can make something like the wall screen look real. It literally takes an image, a brand new view. It can make anything you like. And Scotty tells her he deleted his copies of the information. He don't want nothing to do with that. In fact, he wants to transfer it back down to mechanical because whatever's going on, he's not with it. Okay, so she goes back to her office and asks Peter if he can think of why it's cheaper to port her a message than send a wire. So she's like, what if it's to make conversing and passing information difficult? So they end up getting another call about another suicide. It's Scotty, the boy that she just went down there to talk to. So she starts to go, but as they're talking, Peter had gotten a private message that said to take Juliet into custody. So he ends up handcuffing her because the wire says she's a suspect. So she ends up in jail. Bernard comes down there and is like, I'm sure this is a big misunderstanding. I'm sure they'll all pass. And so she's like, what the heck am I in jail for? And he's like, you're in jail for unauthorized entry into IT, threatening a silo member, tampering in IT affairs, removing IT property from secure quarters. She's like, this was all a bunch of crap. I was summoned down there to IT and I had every right to be there. And Bernard's like, fine, I'll have my people look into it. She's like, your people, what do you mean by that? He's like, you know what I mean by that. And she's like, the pact says you can't be sheriff and the IT head. Bernard said it's going to be put to a vote anyway. So she says, so you want me out the way. Because she's putting stuff together now at this point. So she looks over at Peter and is like, I guess you were supposed to have this job all along, huh? So Peter slinks away because he's all shy and cowardly. Bernard's like, I don't want you out your way. I want people in their place. I want them doing the job they're supposed to do. AKA, get your butt back down there to mechanical. Okay, so she goes back, he tells her, yeah, you can go back down there to mechanical. Make sure you check in along the way and we'll drop all these charges, y'all. She going home. It's only been a week. She hasn't been sheriff for about a week. And on the way down, Juliet's thinking, and she's like, Scotty didn't have it in him to take his own life. And honestly, now I wonder if Mars did either. So Juliet makes the trek all the way back down there to mechanical. She makes it to her house and she's reading the wires from Scotty. He's like, I couldn't let it go. The program is not for a big screen. The pixel density isn't right. It's 8 inches by 2 inches. He's like, I'm sending a wire because I don't trust porters. And he asks her to wire him back. Says again, he needs to transfer back to mechanical. So this is literally after she left. He's like, oh, still digging into it. Then as soon as she makes it back upstairs, he's gone. So she ends up copying the wire that Scotty sent onto a piece of paper. And then the next day she goes to Walker. Says she needs to talk to him about something that happened with Scotty. And, you know, Walker's like, man, I feel bad because I convinced him to take that job up there in IT. I thought it would be good for him. And then so she ends up telling Walker, actually, I don't think Scotty killed himself, okay? And so Walker's like, all right, well, tell me who they did it then. And Juliet is basically like, well, whoever did it, they didn't have to travel far to do it. And then Walker realizes, oh, IT did it. Cool, got you. So she ends up telling him how Scotty sent her a wire. She ends up telling him about the program that makes the images and the pixels being too dense. And then asks him, like, what kind of screen would be 8 inches by 2 inches? And honestly, it doesn't even make sense if a screen is 8 inches by 2 inches because you wouldn't be able to tell one pixel from the next pixel. So she starts talking to Walker about the heat tape again and it's like, oh, it couldn't have self-destructed better if it had been engineered to. So Walker goes over and turns on this air compressor so that it's noisy. And then Jules starts talking about all the bodies that happened from the past cleaner. Somehow they've been improving these suits for hundreds of years, but somehow they all die after having just enough time to clean the windows. Then she says to him the same thing that she said to Peter, that the cost of messages makes it really hard to talk to people and to get together and to rally. And she also feels like the mechanical is very far away from IT for a reason. And then Walker's like, so you think they killed Scotty? And she says, I think it's worse than that. I think they kill everybody. After that, Deputy Hank comes down to Mechanical and she's like, what's going on? Is it my dad? Is he sick? Is he hurt? Is he dead? But then he arrests her for grave crimes against the silo and tells her she will be judged and sentenced according to the pact. And if she's found guilty, she'll be given the chance at honor. Should humanity banish you from this world, in that banishment may you find your sins scrubbed away. Knox is like, this is crazy. What you want me to do? And so she ends up calling him off, calling everybody off. So they don't do anything. So they make it up to the mids. Lucas comes and visits her in jail. And he's like, we've been fighting. People are collecting signatures, trying to sign a petition for you. And she's like, it's not going to work. You're not going to be able to sign a petition so I don't go to jail and I don't have to go out there and clean. And then he tells her, even though her life is a done deal, that he was actually coming to ask her out the same day that she was arrested. And she's like, let it go find someone else. And he's like, I thought I had found someone. And she cried. He cried. They both crowed. So finally they make it up to level 1 and they tell her the crimes that she's accused of. Everyone from Mechanical ends up sending her letters. Walker also sends her a note and it says, Jules, no fear, now is for laughing. The truth is a joke and they're good in supply. Walk. So she wakes up and a man is standing there. She hears like the wedding band on like her finger clink onto the bars and she says, Dad. But the man doesn't like announce himself and then they just walk away. So the next morning is cleaning day. She decided she's not going to clean. So she suits up. She repeats Walker's note to herself. She wonders why he had capitalized supply. And so she walks outside. And as she walks outside, she realizes that she's looking through an 8x2 sheet of glass. So up in the cafeteria, Bernard is watching Jules' cleaning alone. And he likes to do that because he likes to gauge everybody's reaction to what they're seeing. So they're seeing this world that's super bright and clean. And he feels like seeing them do that is a reminder of a system that works. That sight of the false hope drives them to do something that they said they would not do. So he sees Juliet trudging up that hill, grime on the sensor still in place, and he watches her go all the way up that hill, calls near Holston and Holston's wife's bodies, and then she keeps walking and disappears out of sight. She doesn't clean anything. So obviously Bernard's like, what the heck is going on? He runs back down to IT. He is afraid. His mandate, second to preserving data on the machines, is to never let anyone out of sight. So he thinks about the power holiday that went on for a week that threatened the servers as attempts began to rise. He thinks about how he dislikes everyone down there and how he only needed to go down there once to kill a man, meaning the boyfriend that Jules had. He opens a server, takes out a headset, and plugs in a cord. It connects to somebody. So, and he says, Silo 1, this is Silo 18. We might have a slight problem. Now, we switch over to Lucas. Lucas is sad about losing Juliet, okay? He thinks about going up to see her, but then he thinks about how he would see her body on the hill. Then he thinks about himself jumping off the stairs because he just wants to end it all. So he sees Deputy Marsh and asks if the cleaner went through or not. And he tells him that she went out, but she didn't clean. She went over the hills. So then Lucas takes Juliet's things from the deputy to take up to Bernard as like a favor. I can do this for you. So then we switch to Walker. Walker learns from a porter that Juliet refused to clean and also that she's gone over the hill and that Bernard saw the whole thing. And Walker, for the first time in 40 years, leaves his workroom. So then we go back to Juliet right when she's walking out of the airlock. And she's like, she knew that it wasn't real when she saw it. The whole display of everything looking bright and clean and amazing, she knew it wasn't real. Then she remembers the letter about them being good in supply. And she realizes that that means that they replaced IT's materials with those from Mechanical's. Probably at Walker's asking. And so the more she walks, she starts seeing more portions of the sky. The actual sky, because it's a break in the program. So in the screen, the skyscrapers are super clean, super pristine, but in real life, windows are broken, dirty, dusty, okay? So as she's walking, she's feeling like she probably doesn't have a lot of air left. So she notices these bowls where like the silo is sitting at. So she walks up to a cleaner that's dead and realizes, my silo did not have a dead cleaner outside of it. This is not my silo at all. Then she realizes that there's these dunes of earth, that these bowls were not meant to block out the winds, but to shield curious eyes, to block the view of others. And that's about halfway through the book. So let's get into the last 3 episodes of the TV show. So starting with episode 8, Juliet goes to the office and tries to plug in his hard drive that she had. Access denied. Billings calls her down to the office and it's being searched. They were ordered by Meadows to find unregistered relics, aka that hard drive that she had. So this search reminds her of her house being searched after her mom built the microscope. Her mom and dad have argued about it, and her mom thinks her dad is the one that reported her. He says he didn't, but she doesn't believe him. So she goes out and gives him the magnifying glass. And honestly, they would have never found that doggone magnifying glass. I would have never found the magnifying glass. She had it in so many doggone bits and pieces. So she puts together, they smash it immediately. Then they're like, where's the bunny? Like, come on now. And so the mom is like, the bunny has already died. And then so the dad backs up, yes, the bunny has already died. But the bunny was very much still alive and present. So back to present, they end up checking Juliet's backpack. But they don't find anything, and then they leave. So Jules tells Billings that it was personal. And even though Meadows signed the warrant, she don't think she calling the shots. Because she's not. She tells him that she thinks Sims is in charge. Then it occurs to her that it was an illegal search. So then they go down to judicial and she tells Sims he's under arrest. And Sims gets all condescending to Billings and it's like, all those pack bees finally paid off, huh? And it was like, that was unnecessary. You didn't have to talk to that man like that. Sims said he has nothing to do with that illegal search. And she said, well, your agent broke protocol, and she has Billings cuff him. So Jules starts to search Sims's office, and she finds 3 files on Shirley Campbell, Martha Walker, and Hannah Nichols, her mom. So she goes to see her dad, and she asks him why didn't he want her mom to build a magnifier. And it's not like she wasn't going up there to accuse him. She just really wanted to understand why she killed herself. And he's like, it wasn't that he didn't want her to build a magnifying glass. When her brother died, the dad went inward and withdrew. But the mom, she turned her grief outward and she pushed towards dangerous things. She wanted answers and she didn't care what line she had to cross. And he wanted to help her and to protect her. And he honestly does regret not stopping judicial when they came down here and blew up her spot for that doggone magnifying glass. Because once they crushed that magnifying glass, they crushed her spirit and the dad just could not bring her back. And that's why he honestly ended up letting Juliet stay down there in mechanical too. He wanted to let her fix real things instead of chasing impossible answers like the mother did. And yet here she is, chasing impossible answers like the mother did. And then he reiterates again, I swear to God, I didn't report your mama. And Jules is like, I know. Turns out they're watching through cameras in the mirrors. Maintenance had even come to put a camera in the nursery because it's a dad spot. And so Juliet goes and removes that hard drive from a baby bed and says she's going to take the hard drive down there to Walker. She hugs her dad, says goodbye. She starts walking down. There's a doggone ID check. So Billings goes home to his wife. He's holding glass plates, ends up dropping them and breaking them. And she says, your tremors have gotten worse since you went upstairs. And he's like, it's not the job, but it's the fact that he had to choose between Juliet and Sims. And the wife is like, people are saying that Juliet is laying down the groundwork for another rebellion. She's getting people riled up. Walker ends up reading a message from Jules that said that she was heading down to her at 6. But now it's 7:05 and Juliet hasn't arrived. So she goes to leave, but obviously she's scared. So her friend Shirley walks by and she tells her what has happened, how Juliet's not there when she's supposed to be. So Lucas is in the cafeteria and he gets a porter message to meet in room 613 for answers. Juliet's in there. She shows him the hard drive and says it requires an authorization she doesn't have, a SISOP. He tells her it needs to be open on her workplace computer, but he's a little hesitant to help her because he don't want to get in trouble, okay? So she smashes a mirror, shows him the camera, and is like, look, they're everywhere. Like, so give it up, give it a rest. You're in it now, okay? And so he's like, he would, but his mom. And then she gets mad that he still cares about his mom, and then she leaves. He tries to follow, but judicial ends up coming up there. So she starts walking down again. She gets stopped at another checkpoint for ID and bag, but they won't let her through. But then Bernard comes down. He's like, let her through. And the lady's like, but you said. And he's like, but, shut the heck up. Let this woman through. Okay, you're going to disrespect the mayor too? Because he's the mayor in this. So they walk and he asks what's going on. And Juliet tells him that judicial is planning a takeover, but that Meadows isn't the one behind it. It's Sims. So she ends up walking with him and they end up going to like the crops area. Okay. And he tells her to walk him through it. He's like, what are they looking for? And she's like, what do you mean? And starts feeling suspicion. He's like, there's checkpoints everywhere. The annex searched your apartment. And then he starts saying, if you have the hard drive, and then he's like, oh crap. I have told on myself. And that's when he realizes he messes up. And then Sims comes up behind Juliet. And that's when she realizes, oh my God, Bernard is the one behind it all. This whole time throughout the whole show, episodes 1 through 7, it's been a little iffy. I honestly felt like, even after reading the book, I knew he was the bad guy. And when I was watching the show, I said, oh, he must be innocent in this show. They must have made some changes. No changes made to that. Still the bad guy. Okay. So Sims comes up behind her and he's like, I'm sorry, did you say you want to go outside? And Sims was like, yeah, I think she did say she wants to go outside. And she's like, no, I didn't. And so Bernard starts monologuing and he's like, the founders knew someone would have to make the hard decision to keep the silos alive, and it's me. The needs of the many require sacrifices of the few, which is why he was killing them people. He said, y'all are the few. Okay. And she says, for what? Hard drive and heat tape? And he's like, you are the greatest threat to our home in 140 years, which is like, that's a major thing. You're the greatest threat in 140 years. I honestly would take it as an honor. She takes off running because she's like, you'll never take me alive. But she actually is not good at running and hiding and like dodging. And so she gets tackled immediately by judicial raiders. So she, she's fighting, but ultimately it's a wrap. They got her. So then she has a flashback to her being in the fields after her mom's death and no one being there. And she says they're all cowards, even her mom, and she lets the bunny go. So Shirley tells Walker what happened and asks what happens next. Juliet tries to talk to Paul, and he's like, you want me to enforce the pact when it suits you? And she's like, no, I never said that I want to go out. And Sims is like, yes, she did. And Paul says she has a right to request a hearing if you think you were misheard. And she's like, he's judicial. She gets punched in the gut, okay? And they make her finish walking after punching her, which is cruel and unusual punishment. As they're walking, Paul's holding her. His hands start shaking because he's got the tremors, okay? She kind of uses that to her advantage, and I felt bad for him because she got away. So she grabs her back and jumps off the stairs, okay? Episode 9 comes back, see her jumped off the stairs. She got the Mario coins and the Sonic rings knocked out of her. She didn't have no breath in her lungs when she landed on that doggone landing. But she picks herself up and she keeps on running because she's got somewhere to go. Sims asks Paul how she got away, and he's like, you think I let her go? And it's like, no, we don't think you let her go. We think you got shaky hands. He gets sent home for the day because obviously you can't handle keeping a prisoner in check. So now all of the watchers are looking for her, even the off-duty ones too, okay? So we go back to Bernard and we see a keychain on his desk with the number 18. It's flashing red. Bernard picks it up and he tells Sims that he hopes he understands what they're facing. And then we see Paul talking to his wife and he's like, I would rather people know I have the syndrome than for them to think I'm just incompetent at my job. And his wife just wants him to go back to judicial because she's like, you're going to get sent out to clean. I know you are. Just like the last sheriff and just like Juliet. Paul ends up telling his wife a messed up story about this kid that tried to befriend him when he was younger because they both had the syndrome. And instead of him being like, oh man, you got the syndrome, I got the syndrome too, let's be best friends, he hit that kid dead in his face. And I don't know what the moral of the story for that was. He then leaves to go and catch Juliet. So we see Hank go over to Walker's place to ask if Juliet is still there. She's not there. The Raiders go to the nursery and ask her dad if she knows where she is. And he's like, no. And asks Sims if he would give up his child if he was in the same position. And Sims is like, yes, because no one person is above the silo. And the lie detector test. Come on now, you're lying. So then we see Camille, Sims' wife, and his child go home. So the Raiders try to go inside to check, make sure everything's okay, and Camille says no. Apparently she was a Raider for 12 years, and she's like, I'm good. I know what to do if somebody's in my doggone house. Okay, so they go inside. She sees the glass shattered, the camera pointing down. Wife goes to grab a gun, right? Checks house. Juliet sneaks up behind her, okay? Puts a weapon to her neck, says she won't hurt her, but will if she has to. Then she handcuffs Camille to a pipe and moves all the weapons away from her. And then she plugs the hard drive into the computer in Sims's house. So Billings goes to the sheriff's office and gets stonewalled. So then he decides that he's going to go to Juliet's house, do some snooping, see what he can find. He ends up looking behind her bathroom mirror and finds the book. So Bernard ends up talking to Lucas Kyle and is like, do you know what those lights in the sky are? Does Juliet know what those lights in the sky are? I know you went to go see Juliet, so let's cut all this crap right now. And he's like, I know y'all talked. I know she broke a mirror, destroying the air quality monitor, which is a criminal offense. And he knows that she showed him the hard drive. And Bernard asks, so what did you do when she did all of that stuff in front of you? And obviously he don't say anything. Bernard's like, exactly, you did nothing. And so he's like, you should have said something. So Bernard threatens to punish him if he doesn't help. So he's like, okay, was there a serial number on this doggone hard drive? And he's like, no, not a serial, just the number 18. So then Lucas gets put in jail and they won't let anybody talk to that boy. So Bernard goes to IT so he can find the location of the hard drive. We see Paul looking at the pictures in the book that he got out of Juliet's mirror that he shouldn't be looking at. So then Bernard ends up talking to Sims and he's like, I've been questioning making you my shadow since you sent raiders to your house to walk your family. But then the hard drive pings and it says Sims' house. Now you gotta eat your words, okay? Because Sims was on to something. And also, he immediately proved Jules' dad right when he was like, when you do the same for your kid, and Sims was like, no, but clearly, yes. Juliet sees a file on that hard drive that says start here. She clicks it, it starts talking. It's a video that George recorded. Sims' wife ends up getting free. She grabs a hammer. She says to Juliet, you can run or you can keep watching that video and die. Sims is running to his house, cameras in the hallway going in and out. They get to the house, Juliet is gone, okay? So then he goes to see Patrick and Juliet is there because obviously it's a setup. And Patrick's like, what the heck is he doing here? And turns out he's a part of the ring that hacks the Silo security network and fences stolen goods from the marketplace. Patrick's like, I'm doing it for the watch. Danny's like, is there another watch? Juliet's like, no, there's no other watch. And then he's like, well, I'm not interested. And then Patrick's like, yes, you are. And they hand him the hard drive. And he remembers that George had it. We go to Paul. He removes one page from that book, puts the rest of the book in the oven. Then he plugs in the hard drive and opens the same file. And he says, I can make it seem like this hard drive is being plugged in somewhere else. Okay, so we played a video and George said he transferred to Mechanical to get all the information that he could and was going to leave her behind, but he fell in love. I'm just like, oh, thanks for falling in love with me, right? And he tells her that the door is down there and she has to find it. And then he also tells her to look for the Jane Carmody cleaning file. And he says, Allison is right. The display is a lie. Episode 10, finale for season 1. Juliet comes back and says, everyone needs to see this. I want to show it on every screen. So they end up going to like level 110 or something like that. And 3 of them go inside of a trash chute. So it turns out somebody snitched on Paul and tells Sims he went to Nichols' apartment. Okay. He says he thought that if he could find out why she wanted to go out, that he might be able to find her. Sims ends up going off on him because he's still upset about Paul arresting him. But then Sims stops and is like, why are you holding your hand? But going back to the 3 amigos, they end up coming out of the trash chute and they plug the hard drive into a hub on level 126. IT is notified immediately. Okay, but they start showing the cleaning screen on everyone's screen. Everyone in IT sees it, and Bernard has everyone turn around and cover their faces, and then Bernard shuts all of the computers down. So that means Bernard knows it's fake, but everyone else really doesn't know that it's fake, even the other people that are working in IT. So Bernard ends up shutting the computers down. Sims has a super hard, just look on his face. And Bernard tells them to unsee what they saw, which is actually impossible. Juliet starts to run because it pinged them immediately. Patrick and Danny get caught. Bernard realizes she's in the trash chute. That's how she's moving around so freely. So Sims tells them to throw heavy stuff at her, either to kill her or force her out that doggone trash chute. They push an AC unit at that girl, okay? That she has to let go and free fall for floors and floors and floors. Okay, she hits the trash pile, knocked out immediately. They pull her away. AC unit falls in the same spot a second later. I don't even think they were trying to have her go clean. They were just going to kill her in front of everybody. Shirley brings Juliet to Walker's place. And then Knox comes down and is like, Judicial is here. I called them because of what they would have torn that place apart looking for her. So she ends up talking to Bernard and she's like, people can handle the truth. And he's like, yeah, right. You're stupid. Smashes the hard drive, okay? Tells her she will be shackled and she needs to stop saying that she didn't actually go outside and waive rights to a judicial hearing in order to prevent a rebellion and save her friends. So she's like, fine, I'll do all of that, but tell me what happened to George. And he's like, if you cooperate, I can do more than tell you, baby. So we go back to Shirley and Walker, and Shirley says, I wish I had talked her out of getting that heat tape. That's why they're after her. And Walker's like, I'm sure the list of why they're after her is very long. Okay, so then after 25 years, Walker leaves her apartment and she goes to talk to Carla about the heat tape thing. Carla's like, I don't know why they're so upset. The heat tape and Mechanical is way better than the heat tape and Supply. We go back to Jules. They end up taking her to IT and they pull up the surveillance of George Wilkins on the stairs. And that's when she's like, wow, never had a chance. Y'all were watching me every step of the way. So we see George walking down the stairs. He has a raider with him. He stops, asks for some water. When the guy's like, okay, sure. He pushes the guy and goes and sits on the railing. He puts his hand over his heart and then falls back. Now Juliet's in jail. Her dad comes and brings her food. And he asks why she says she wants to go out. And she starts to answer, sees the camera, and just changes the subject back to the food that he brought her. Cut to Bernard. He has Lucas brought into him. And he's like, you know what? You're not being sent out to clean, but I am sentencing you to 10 years in the mines. And it's a shame since you had so much intellectual curiosity. You won't see any stars in the mine, but perhaps 10 years will set you straight. And it's like, dang, this is exactly what he's trying to avoid, Juliet. Okay, what about his mama? So Julie goes to visit Juliet in jail. She brings her some sweets from Walker, and she tells her to take the whole box. So inside of the box, there's a note that says, you wanted the truth. The truth is I love you. Have no fear. They're good in supply. So then we cut to Paul. Paul goes home and tells his wife that Sims knows he has a syndrome. He's not fired. An exception has been granted. Because obviously, I think they still want to make him sheriff. We cut to Bernard and Juliet. Bernard tells Juliet that he takes no pleasure in any of it. She's like, great, then quit. He's like, no. He said he thinks about it every day. But Juliet's problem started at conception. Because the problem is her parents weren't supposed to have children, but accidents happen. And then so she asks, why doesn't he tell people it's okay to go outside? He knows the display is a lie and asks why he doesn't tell people about the door that George found. And he just says the founders left us with many mysteries. And then he basically says, let's hop to it. And she's like, I'm not gonna clean. And then he says everybody cleans. And then he also tells her that her last request was granted to have her sheriff's badge. So then they start fitting her with this suit so she can go out to clean. We see Bernard take the disk out of the hard drive because it wasn't damaged. And then we see everybody gather in the cafeteria. Knox comes and stands next to Shirley. She's mad at him. She moves away. So Bernard ends up reading her last rites. We do not know why we're here. We don't know who built the silo. We don't know why everything outside the silo is as it is. We don't know when it will be safe to go outside. We only know that that day is not this day. And it's like, man, what a thing to say before somebody goes out to die. Okay, her last words are, I'm not afraid. And then she goes outside. She sees the beautiful screen, sees some birds flying, and realizes that it's not the cafeteria display that is a lie. It's her display and her helmet that's a lie. So she walks up to the screen in the cafeteria, drops the cleaning supplies, walks away. Sims asks, what do we do? Bernard says, she'll be down before she reaches the tree, okay? She ends up tramping on something that she can't see. Bernard says, right on schedule, right? Cut to her, she touches the rock, it glitches. Bernard says, oh my God, she knows. And I know she knows. So she puts the badge on the rock, aka Holston's body, gets up, realizes she has the good heat tape, which is why she is not falling out and died like everybody else. She walks over the hill. Bernard runs to IT and opens a door with that little red keychain he has. Her screen glitches and she sees more and more of the real world. She turns around, sees the camera, turns back around, walks over the hill. The camera pans out and you see more circles with the camera in them. A lot more. So if you didn't know at first, they made some major changes from the book to the TV show, especially with the whole action sequence when Juliet's like, everybody has to know what's going on. If you haven't started season 2 already, just know it's about to be a lot of world building in another silo. And yeah, it's kind of like that in the book too. So if you like this video, just be prepared for the season 2 finale of Silo to be compared to the second half of the book Wool. And I'll see y'all on Saturday.